The sun cast long shadows through the gleaming windows of Lux Avenue, one of the most prestigious boutiques in downtown Manhattan. Outside, yellow cabs honked their way through the busy streets while inside, crystal chandeliers sparkled above racks of designer clothes worth more than most people's monthly salary. A woman in her early 30s walked in, wearing comfortable jeans and a simple white t-shirt. Her dark hair was tied back in a casual ponytail, and she carried a worn leather messenger bag over her shoulder. She hadn't bothered with makeup that morning, choosing instead to spend extra time reviewing quarterly reports for her company. The boutique's interior was familiar to her, she'd been here countless times before, though usually through the back entrance. Today, however, she wanted to experience the store as any other customer would. As the CEO of Stellar Retail Group, which had acquired Lux Avenue 6 months ago, she believed in understanding every aspect of her businesses firsthand. As she browsed through a rack of designer dresses, she noticed how the sales associates huddled together, whispering and casting sideways glances at her. None approached to offer assistance, something she noted mentally for later discussion. The store's customer service policy explicitly stated that every customer should be greeted within 2 minutes of entering. Finally, after 10 minutes of being completely ignored, she selected a midnight blue evening gown and made her way to the fitting rooms. That's when she heard it, a loud, condescending voice that carried across the store's marble floor. "I'm sorry, but those fitting rooms are reserved for serious customers," announced a man in an impeccably tailored suit, his voice dripping with disdain. She recognized him as the recently hired store manager, though they hadn't formally met yet. He'd been brought on by the previous management, just before the acquisition. The woman turned to face him, maintaining her composure. "I am a customer," she replied calmly, "and I'd like to try this dress." The manager's lip curled slightly as his eyes traveled from her casual sneakers to her simple outfit. "Perhaps," he suggested with fake politeness, "you might be more comfortable shopping at one of the department stores downtown. This dress," he reached out and checked the price tag, "is priced at $4,900. We wouldn't want to waste anyone's time." Several customers nearby had stopped browsing to watch the scene unfold. The woman could feel their eyes on her, some sympathetic, others curious, and a few wearing the same dismissive expression as the manager. She took a deep breath, remembering her mother's words about handling difficult situations with grace. Her mom had started their family business from nothing, teaching her that true class had nothing to do with designer labels or price tags. "I understand your concern," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But I would still like to try on the dress. Unless, of course, there's a written policy about who can and cannot use the fitting rooms based on their appearance." The manager's face reddened slightly, but his smirk remained firmly in place. "Of course, there's no written policy. However, we do have certain standards to maintain. This is a luxury boutique, after all. Perhaps I could show you our sale section." He gestured toward a small corner of the store where last season's items were displayed. The woman felt her phone vibrate in her pocket, probably another email about tomorrow's board meeting where she would be reviewing the performance of all Stellar Retail Group's locations, including this one. But for now, she remained in character, curious to see how far this situation would go. Little did the manager know, he wasn't just turning away a potential customer, he was giving his boss a front-row seat to exactly the kind of discriminatory behavior that had been reported by several mystery shoppers over the past month. As she stood there, holding the blue dress, she wondered how many other customers had faced similar treatment and never returned. The story of what happened next would soon become a lesson in humility, prejudice, and the importance of treating every person with respect, regardless of their appearance. But for now, she simply stood her ground, about to teach everyone present a valuable lesson they wouldn't soon forget. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as the woman held the manager's gaze. Around them, other customers had stopped pretending to shop, their attention fully captured by the unfolding drama. A young sales associate behind the counter looked uncomfortable, repeatedly glancing between her manager and the woman in casual clothes. "Actually," the woman said, reaching into her messenger bag, "I think we need to have a conversation about customer service." She pulled out a small leather portfolio bearing the Stellar Retail Group's distinctive silver logo. The manager's expression flickered slightly. He recognized the logo, but confusion still clouded his features. "I'm the CEO of Stellar Retail Group," she continued, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent store. "We acquired Lux Avenue 6 months ago, and I've been receiving concerning reports about customer treatment in this location. Now I understand why." The color drained from the manager's face so quickly that he had to reach out and steady himself against a nearby display rack. The young sales associate behind the counter dropped the tablet she was holding, the clatter echoing through the hushed space. I had no idea," the manager stammered, his previous arrogance evaporating like morning dew. "Mrs. Chen, I deeply apologize." She held up a hand to stop him. "This isn't about who I am," she said firmly. "This is about who I could have been. I could have been a young professional saving up for her first luxury purchase. I could have been a tourist looking to treat herself. I could have been anyone, and everyone deserves to be treated with respect." By now, other staff members had emerged from various corners of the store, drawn by the commotion. The woman recognized this as a teaching moment, not just for the manager, but for everyone present. "Let me tell you about my mother," she continued, setting the blue dress carefully on a nearby counter. "She came to this country with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. She worked 3 jobs to save enough money to open her first small boutique. Back then, when she went shopping at high-end stores for inventory inspiration, she was treated exactly like you just treated me." The manager's face had progressed from pale to slightly green. Someone in the gathering crowd of customers murmured, "Serves him right," but the woman remained focused on her message. 20 years later, her small boutique had grown into a successful chain, which eventually became Stellar Retail Group. But she never forgot how it felt to be judged by her appearance. "When she passed away last year, she left me not just a company, but a mission, to ensure that fashion and luxury remain accessible to anyone who appreciates them, regardless of how they look or what they're wearing." She glanced around the store, taking in the wide eyes and attentive faces of both customers and staff. "The clothes in this store are expensive, yes. But the experience of shopping here, of being treated with dignity and respect, that should be priceless. And it should be available to everyone who walks through that door." A middle-aged woman in designer clothes who had been shopping nearby stepped forward. "I've been coming to this store for years," she said, "and I've seen this kind of behavior before. I just never had the courage to say anything." The CEO nodded thoughtfully. "That changes today. But first..." She turned back to the manager, whose attempted smile now looked more like a grimace. "I believe I was about to try on a dress." The manager practically tripped over himself rushing to open the fitting room door. But the CEO shook her head. "No, thank you. I don't think I'll be making a purchase today. Instead, I'd like all the staff to gather in the break room in 5 minutes. We're going to have an emergency training session about our customer service policies." As the staff began to move, she addressed the customers. "I sincerely apologize to anyone who has ever felt unwelcome in this store. Please accept a 30% discount on your purchases today, and know that we will be making significant changes to ensure this never happens again." The next hour was spent in the break room, where the CEO led an impromptu workshop on unconscious bias and customer service. She shared stories from mystery shoppers who had reported similar experiences, but also highlighted positive feedback from times when staff had gone above and beyond to help customers. The manager sat quietly in the corner, occasionally wiping sweat from his forehead. He knew his job was on the line, but the CEO hadn't addressed his status yet. Instead, she focused on moving forward and creating positive change. "Starting tomorrow," she announced, "we're implementing a new training program across all our stores. Every employee, from sales associates to management, will participate. We're also introducing a customer feedback system that will directly impact employee evaluations and store ratings. She paused, making eye contact with each person in the room. But more importantly, I want everyone to remember this: every person who walks through our doors has a story. They have dreams, aspirations, and their own journey. Our job isn't to judge that journey, it's to be a positive part of it. As the impromptu meeting concluded, the CEO pulled the manager aside for a private conversation. The story of what she said to him would soon spread throughout the company's entire retail network, becoming a powerful reminder of how a single interaction can change everything. But that was just the beginning of the changes coming to Lux Avenue, and to the entire world of luxury retail. Word of what happened at Lux Avenue spread like wildfire through social media. One of the customers had discreetly recorded the entire interaction on their phone, and within hours, the video went viral. Comments poured in from people sharing similar experiences at high-end stores, but what caught everyone's attention was the CEO's handling of the situation. The following morning, the store hummed with nervous energy. The manager arrived early, his usual confident stride replaced by a hesitant walk. He'd spent a sleepless night reflecting on his actions and expecting an email about his termination. Instead, he found a message requesting his presence at an early morning meeting with the CEO. He found her already waiting in the store's office, reviewing documents at his desk. She'd traded yesterday's casual outfit for a sophisticated business suit, but her manner remained just as direct and straightforward. "Take a seat," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "I've been reading your performance reports from before the acquisition. Your sales numbers were impressive, but there's something missing from these statistics." The manager sat stiffly, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Mrs. Chen, about yesterday." "Yesterday," she interrupted, "was a wake-up call. Not just for you, but for our entire organization. And please, call me Amy." She set down the reports and looked at him intently. "Tell me why you started working in retail." The question caught him off guard. He'd expected a firing, or at least a severe reprimand. Instead, he found himself sharing how he'd started as a sales associate in college, working his way up through the ranks. How he'd once loved helping customers find exactly what they were looking for, seeing their faces light up in front of fitting room mirrors. Somewhere along the way, he admitted, his voice growing quiet, "I started focusing more on sales targets than people. I thought being exclusive would make us more prestigious." Amy nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly the mindset we need to change. I'm not firing you." His head snapped up in surprise. "You're not?" "No. Instead, I'm giving you a different kind of challenge." She pulled out a new document. "For the next month, you'll be working as a sales associate at our downtown location. You'll be helping customers directly, but with a twist, you'll be doing it in casual clothes, just like I was wearing yesterday." The manager's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. "I understand. It's a lesson in humility." "It's more than that," Amy corrected. "It's an opportunity to rediscover why you chose this career in the first place. After the month is up, if you've learned from the experience, you'll return here with a new title, Director of Customer Experience. Your mission will be implementing our new inclusive luxury initiative across all locations." Meanwhile, the store was undergoing its own transformation. New signs appeared in the windows, "Everyone is welcome here," and "Luxury is an experience, not a label." The sales team underwent intensive training in unconscious bias and inclusive customer service. The young sales associate who had dropped her tablet during yesterday's confrontation emerged as an unexpected leader. During the training session, she shared her own story of feeling out of place in the luxury retail world because of her background. Her genuine enthusiasm for making everyone feel welcome inspired her colleagues. Regular customers noticed the change immediately. The atmosphere in the store shifted from intimidating to inviting. Sales associates began greeting everyone who walked through the doors with the same warm welcome, regardless of their appearance. And surprisingly to those who had resisted the changes, sales numbers didn't drop, they improved. One afternoon, 2 weeks after the incident, a teenage girl tentatively entered the store with her mother. They were dressed simply, and the daughter clutched a small envelope that obviously contained carefully saved money. They were looking for a dress for her first high school formal. The manager, now dressed in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, approached them with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Lux Avenue," he said, remembering his own daughter's recent formal. "May I help you find something special today?" The mother explained their budget hesitantly, but there was no trace of judgment in his response. Instead, he led them to a section of the store where he knew they could find beautiful options within their range. As he helped the girl select dresses to try on, he shared styling tips and suggestions for accessories she could find at more affordable stores to complete her look. When the girl finally found the perfect dress, a lovely pale pink gown that happened to be on sale, her mother's eyes welled up with tears. "We were so nervous about coming in here," she admitted. "We'd tried another luxury store and were told rather rudely that there was nothing here for us." The manager felt a familiar pang of shame, remembering his own similar words from just weeks ago. "Every special moment deserves to be celebrated," he replied, using one of the phrases from their new training. But this time, the words weren't just a slogan, he meant them. That evening, after the customers had left, he sat down to write his daily reflection, another part of his retraining program. He described the joy on the teenage girl's face when she found her dress, the mother's grateful tears, and how different it felt to truly help people rather than judge them. As he wrote, he glanced at the framed photo now sitting on his temporary desk in the back office, a picture of his younger self in his first retail job, proudly wearing his name tag and a genuine smile. Next to it was a sticky note with Amy's words from their meeting: "Luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about making everyone feel extraordinary." The story of Lux Avenue's transformation was far from over, but already it was causing ripples throughout the luxury retail industry. Other high-end stores were taking notice, and fashion blogs were buzzing with discussions about accessibility and inclusion in luxury shopping. But the real changes were happening one customer interaction at a time, in moments that wouldn't make headlines but would make a difference. 1 month after the viral incident, Amy sat in her office reviewing a stack of customer feedback forms. The transformation at Lux Avenue had exceeded her expectations, but what truly caught her attention were the stories behind the numbers. A local teacher wrote about how she'd been helped to find a perfect outfit for a job interview, even though her budget was modest. A grandfather described how the staff had made his granddaughter feel like a princess while shopping for her graduation dress. Each letter reflected not just satisfaction with purchases, but gratitude for being treated with dignity and respect. The viral video had now reached over 10 million views, spawning hundreds of response videos from people sharing their own experiences with retail discrimination. But instead of focusing on the negative incident, most commenters praised the CEO's hands-on approach and the visible changes that followed. Fashion magazines and business journals were calling daily, requesting interviews about what they dubbed the Lux Avenue Revolution. Amy declined most, preferring to let the results speak for themselves. However, she did agree to one interview, with a small fashion blog run by a former retail worker who had faced similar discrimination. During the interview, conducted in the now transformed store, Amy shared something she hadn't revealed before. "The dress I was trying to buy that day," she said, gesturing to the midnight blue gown still displayed prominently in the store. "It was the same design my mother wore to her first major business award ceremony. I wanted to wear it to accept an award in her honor next month." The story touched hearts across the internet, adding a deeply personal dimension to what had already become a viral sensation. But the real changes were happening away from the cameras and social media posts. The manager, now in his final week of retraining, had experienced a profound transformation of his own. Working on the sales floor in casual clothes had opened his eyes to the subtle ways people's appearances influenced treatment, not just from staff, but from other customers as well. One particular incident stood out to him. A wealthy regular customer had treated him dismissively, assuming he couldn't afford to shop there himself. The experience brought him full circle, helping him understand exactly how he'd made others feel in his previous role. His daily reflection journals, once brief and mechanical, had evolved into thoughtful observations about human nature and the true meaning of luxury service. Amy had begun sharing excerpts from these reflections, anonymously, in the company's training materials. The young sales associate who had emerged as a leader continued to shine. She'd initiated a Style for All program, offering free styling sessions to job seekers who needed help putting together professional outfits. The service became so popular that other stellar retail group locations began implementing it as well. One rainy afternoon, a woman rushed into the store seeking shelter from the downpour. She wore scrubs and looked exhausted, clearly just finishing a long hospital shift. In the past, she might have been ushered out or watched suspiciously. Instead, a sales associate offered her a cup of tea from the store's new beverage station. As she warmed up, the woman mentioned she was looking for a special occasion dress but hadn't had time to shop properly. The staff not only helped her find the perfect dress but also arranged to have it delivered to her home, understanding her tight schedule as a healthcare worker. The woman later wrote a heartfelt social media post about her experience, which caught the attention of a major news network. They wanted to run a story about the store's transformation, but Amy had a different idea. Instead of focusing on Lux Avenue, she suggested highlighting other retailers who were making similar changes. This isn't about one store or one incident, she explained to the reporter. It's about changing an industry-wide culture that has existed for too long. We're seeing luxury boutiques across the country adopting similar policies, and that's what deserves attention. She was right. Other high-end retailers had taken notice of Lux Avenue's success. Some made changes out of genuine desire for improvement, others from fear of similar viral incidents. But regardless of motivation, the landscape of luxury retail was shifting. The manager's final day of retraining coincided with a special event at the store, a community fashion show featuring real customers of all ages, sizes, and backgrounds modeling the store's clothing. The same teenage girl who had bought her formal dress was among the models, beaming with confidence as she walked down the makeshift runway. As he watched the show, the manager reflected on his journey. He'd started the month feeling humiliated and expecting to be fired. He was ending it with a deeper understanding of his industry and his role in it. His new position as Director of Customer Experience no longer felt like a punishment but an opportunity to make real change. After the fashion show, Amy gathered the staff for an announcement. Sales had increased by 40% since implementing the new inclusive policies. Customer retention had doubled. But most importantly, employee satisfaction scores had reached an all-time high. When we remove the barriers between people, she said, looking around at her team, we don't diminish luxury, we elevate everyone's experience. My mother understood that true luxury isn't about exclusivity. It's about making everyone feel special, valued, and respected. The story of Lux Avenue's transformation began with a moment of discrimination caught on camera. But its legacy would be the thousands of moments that happened afterward, moments of kindness, inclusion, and respect that weren't recorded or shared online, but that changed people's lives in small but significant ways. 3 months after the viral incident, the luxury retail industry was experiencing a seismic shift. The night of the Business Leadership Awards arrived, and Amy stood backstage, wearing the midnight blue gown that had started it all. Her fingers traced the delicate beading, remembering how her mother had worn the same design years ago. The past few months had been a whirlwind of change. Lux Avenue's transformation had sparked a movement that no one had anticipated. The store's former manager, now Director of Customer Experience, had just finished presenting their new training program at a major retail conference. His session, titled Breaking the Luxury Barrier, had been standing room only. In the audience, retail executives from across the country had listened intently as he shared his personal journey from exclusivity to inclusivity. "I used to think luxury was about keeping people out," he had told them. "Now I understand it's about inviting people in." Back at Lux Avenue, the changes had taken root in unexpected ways. The store had become a case study in successful retail transformation. Business schools were analyzing their model, and fashion magazines were featuring their story not as a scandal, but as a blueprint for change. The Young Sales Associates' Style for All program had expanded beyond job seekers. They now offered styling sessions for major life events, graduations, job interviews, weddings, and more. The program had revealed an untapped market, people who wanted to invest in quality pieces for special occasions but needed guidance and support to do so. One particularly touching success story involved a group of high school students. They'd been turned away from several other boutiques while shopping for prom dresses, but at Lux Avenue, they found a welcoming environment. The store had worked with them to find beautiful dresses within their budget, even organizing a payment plan for one student whose single mother was struggling to afford it. The student's mother later sent a letter that brought tears to Amy's eyes. "You didn't just sell my daughter a dress," she wrote. "You gave her confidence. When other stores made her feel small, you made her feel worthy." Industry statistics were beginning to reflect the impact of these changes. A recent survey showed that 78% of luxury shoppers now considered a store's inclusivity policies when deciding where to shop. Several major fashion houses had begun featuring more diverse models and offering wider size ranges in response to changing consumer demands. The former manager's journey had become legendary within the company. His daily reflection journals from his retraining period had been compiled into a training manual titled Redefining Luxury. In it, he wrote candidly about his previous biases and the experiences that had changed his perspective. One entry described helping an elderly gentleman select a gift for his wife of 50 years. The man had been intimidated by luxury stores but wanted something special for their anniversary. "In my previous role, I might have dismissed him based on his appearance," the manager wrote. "Instead, I spent 2 hours helping him find the perfect scarf. When he teared up telling me about his wife, I realized that luxury isn't about price tags, it's about making moments matter." As Amy prepared to accept her award, she thought about how a single incident had sparked such widespread change. The viral video had now been viewed over 20 million times, but more importantly, it had started conversations about accessibility and respect in luxury retail. Industry publications were reporting a trend they called the Lux Effect. Other high-end stores that had adopted similar inclusive policies were seeing increased sales, higher customer loyalty, and improved employee satisfaction. The myth that exclusivity was necessary for luxury was crumbling. The store's physical space had evolved too. Gone were the intimidating security guards at the entrance. Instead, comfortable seating areas invited people to relax and explore. The store had added a small coffee bar where customers could sit and discuss their style needs with sales associates. The atmosphere was still elegant but welcoming rather than intimidating. A week earlier, Amy had received a surprise visit at the store. An elderly Asian woman had asked to speak with her, explaining that she had owned a small boutique in Chinatown 30 years ago. "I tried to shop at places like this for inspiration," the woman had said, "but they always made me feel unwelcome. Yesterday, I brought my granddaughter here to buy her first designer bag. The difference brought me to tears." These stories kept coming, each one reinforcing that they were on the right path. The store had started a digital campaign called Your Luxury Story, where customers shared their experiences. The responses ranged from heartwarming to heartbreaking, but each one highlighted the importance of their mission. As Amy stepped onto the stage to accept her award, she carried all these stories with her. The spotlight caught the midnight blue sequins of her dress, the same design her mother had worn years ago. But tonight, it represented something more, a bridge between the past and a more inclusive future. My mother taught me that true success isn't measured by how many people you keep out, she began her speech, her voice steady and clear. It's measured by how many people you lift up along the way. This award isn't just for our company, it's for every person who's ever felt they didn't belong, every customer who's been judged by their appearance, and every employee who's chosen to be part of the change. Looking out at the audience, she could see her team from Lux Avenue, including the former manager and the young sales associate who had helped pioneer their new programs. They had all become part of something bigger than themselves, a movement that was redefining luxury for a new generation. 6 months after the viral incident, Lux Avenue's story had crossed international borders. On a crisp autumn morning, Amy stood in front of the store's newest location in Tokyo, where a crowd had gathered for the grand opening. This wasn't just another store launch, it was the debut of their new global initiative, Luxury Without Limits. The Tokyo store embodied everything they'd learned over the past months. The spacious interior featured wider aisles to accommodate wheelchairs, a children's play area where parents could keep their kids entertained while shopping, and private styling rooms designed to make everyone feel comfortable regardless of their budget or background. But what made this location truly special was its staff. Every employee had been trained under the new inclusive luxury program, now led by the former manager who had once turned Amy away. He had traveled to Tokyo personally to oversee the training, sharing his story with each new hire. During the training sessions, a young Japanese sales associate had shared her own story of feeling intimidated by luxury stores growing up. "My parents worked in a ramen shop," she explained. "I loved fashion but never dared to enter these stores. Now I can help others who feel the same way." Back in New York, the original Lux Avenue store had become a kind of pilgrimage site for retail professionals. Store managers from around the world visited to learn about their inclusive approach. Many were surprised to find that luxury and accessibility could coexist so successfully. One visiting retail executive from Paris had been particularly skeptical. "But how do you maintain the exclusivity that luxury customers expect?" she had asked during a tour. Her answer came unexpectedly, while observing a scene in the store. A woman in designer clothes was being helped by the same associate who was assisting a teenager saving up for her first luxury purchase. Both customers received the same attentive service, and both left feeling valued. True luxury, the former manager explained to the French executive, isn't about excluding people, it's about exceeding expectations for everyone who walks through our doors. The store's success had also caught the attention of fashion schools. Universities began incorporating Lux Avenue's case study into their retail management curriculum. Amy was frequently invited to give guest lectures, sharing not just the business metrics but the human stories behind their transformation. During one such lecture, a student asked about the financial risk of their inclusive approach. Amy smiled and pulled up a slide showing their latest figures. Revenue had increased by 150% since implementing the new policies. Customer retention was at an all-time high, and their customer base had diversified significantly. "But the numbers don't tell the whole story," she said, switching to a slide showing photographs from their community events. There was the teenage girl from the fashion show, now working part-time at the store while attending fashion school. The elderly gentleman who bought the scarf for his wife had become a regular customer, bringing friends from his retirement community for shopping trips. The Style for All program had evolved into a global initiative. Each store now partnered with local organizations to provide styling and professional attire for job seekers, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds. The program had helped over 1,000 people secure employment, creating a ripple effect in communities around the world. One success story came from their London location, where a former homeless woman had come in for a job interview outfit. The staff had treated her with such dignity and respect that she broke down in tears. 6 months later, she returned, now employed and successful, to buy her first luxury handbag. The store's influence had begun to affect other industries as well. High-end restaurants, hotels, and car dealerships were adopting similar inclusive policies. The luxe effect had become a broader movement about accessibility and respect in all luxury services. Their social media presence had transformed too. Instead of just showcasing products, their accounts now featured real customers and their stories. A recent post showed a young man in a wheelchair modeling a designer suit, with a caption about how the store had modified their fitting rooms to better serve customers with disabilities. The former manager, now a sought-after speaker on retail transformation, often reflected on how close he had come to missing this revolution. "I almost lost my job because of my prejudices," he shared during a recent conference. "Instead, I found my purpose." One day, while reviewing plans for future locations, Amy received an unexpected email. It was from a luxury retail association in Milan, announcing that they were creating a new industry standard for inclusive luxury retail, and they were naming it the Chin Protocol, after her mother. The email brought tears to her eyes as she remembered her mother's words: "Luxury isn't about making people feel small, it's about making them feel extraordinary." Those words now hung in every Lux Avenue store, translated into different languages but carrying the same powerful message. In Tokyo, as Amy cut the ribbon to open the new store, she noticed a young girl watching from the crowd with her mother. They were dressed simply, but their eyes shone with excitement. Amy walked over and personally invited them to be the store's first customers. As they entered the store together, Amy overheard the girl whisper to her mother, "I want to be like her when I grow up." It wasn't about the success or the luxury, Amy realized, it was about showing future generations that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. The story of Lux Avenue had become more than just a viral moment or a business transformation. It had become a movement, proving that one small incident of discrimination, handled with grace and wisdom, could spark a global change in how we treat each other. 1 year after the viral incident, Lux Avenue had become more than just a luxury retail chain, it was a movement that had reshaped the industry. On a quiet Sunday morning, Amy walked through the original store before opening hours, touching the racks of clothing and remembering how different things had been just 12 months ago. The store had maintained its elegant atmosphere but had evolved in subtle yet significant ways. Interactive digital displays now showed diverse models wearing each piece, and price tags included a "Style for All" section suggesting ways to incorporate items into different wardrobes and budgets. The once intimidating security guards had been replaced by friendly concierges who greeted everyone with warm smiles. As she passed the fitting rooms, Amy smiled at the newly installed Heritage Wall, a collection of photographs and stories from customers and employees. Among them was the viral video that had started it all, now framed alongside stories of transformation and inclusion. The former manager, whose journey had inspired so many, was now running workshops around the world. His latest project involved working with luxury brands to develop size-inclusive collections that didn't compromise on style or quality. "Every body deserves luxury," had become his mantra, and designers were finally listening. One morning, he received a letter that brought everything full circle. It was from a young sales associate at another high-end store, sharing how she'd almost quit the industry after witnessing daily discrimination. "Your story showed me that change is possible," she wrote. "Now I'm working to create that change in my own workplace." The Style for All program had expanded beyond their wildest dreams. They'd partnered with women's shelters, LGBTQ+ youth organizations, and refugee support groups to provide not just clothing, but confidence and dignity. Each store had become a community hub, hosting events that brought together people from all walks of life. A recent event had particularly touched Amy's heart. They'd organized a special shopping day for a group of transgender youth who often felt uncomfortable in traditional retail environments. The store's staff had created such a welcoming atmosphere that several participants cried with joy at being treated with respect and understanding. The young sales associate who had dropped her tablet that fateful day was now the global director of community outreach. She developed a mentorship program pairing experienced retail professionals with young people from underserved communities interested in fashion careers. One of her first ments, a young woman from the Bronx, had just launched her own sustainable fashion line, which Lux Avenue now carried exclusively. "When I was younger, I never saw people like me in luxury retail," she told a fashion magazine. "Now I'm helping create the future of it." The store's approach to customer service had become legendary. Instead of judging by appearance, staff were trained to listen and understand each customer's story. They kept a celebration board in the break room, sharing moments when they'd helped make someone's dream come true. One such story involved a janitor who saved for 6 months to buy his wife an anniversary gift. The staff not only helped him find the perfect present within his budget but also taught him about care and maintenance to ensure the item would last for years. When he returned months later with his wife, both wearing their best clothes but still humble, the staff welcomed them like old friends. The international expansion continued, but with a thoughtful approach. Each new location adapted the inclusive luxury concept to local cultural contexts while maintaining the core values of respect and dignity. In Dubai, they'd created a special private shopping area for conservative customers who preferred more privacy. In Rio, they'd partnered with local artisans to create exclusive collections that celebrated Brazilian creativity. The fashion industry had started following their lead. Major fashion weeks now required designers to show diverse models and size ranges. Luxury magazines featured stories about accessibility and inclusion alongside their haute couture spreads. The Chin Protocol had become the gold standard for luxury retail practices. But perhaps the most significant change was in the day-to-day interactions that never made headlines. Like the grandmother who brought her granddaughter to buy her first designer scarf, just as Amy's mother had done with her. Or the young professional who finally felt confident enough to walk into a luxury store wearing his wheelchair, knowing he would be treated with respect. One quiet afternoon, a teenage girl entered the store, clutching a wrinkled magazine photo. She was wearing clothes from a discount store and looked nervous. Instead of being ignored or judged, she was greeted warmly and asked about her dreams. It turned out she was designing her own clothes and wanted to see high-end construction techniques up close. The staff not only showed her details of various garments but also connected her with their mentorship program. 2 years later, she would become one of their youngest designers, creating a collection specifically for young fashion enthusiasts on a budget. As Amy prepared for a board meeting to discuss the next phase of their expansion, she received news that their story would be featured in a documentary about transformative moments in retail history. But what made her proudest wasn't the recognition, it was the lasting change they'd created in people's lives. The store had kept the midnight blue dress that started it all. It now stood in a special display case, not as a reminder of discrimination, but as a symbol of transformation. Beside it was a simple plaque with her mother's words, "True luxury is making everyone feel extraordinary." That morning, as the sun streamed through the store's windows, Amy watched her staff prepare for another day. The former manager was training a new employee, sharing his story with humility and wisdom. The young sales associate was arranging a community event for local fashion students. Everyone moved with purpose, knowing they were part of something bigger than selling luxury goods. They had proved that luxury and inclusivity weren't just compatible, they were inseparable. The true essence of luxury wasn't about keeping people out, but about lifting people up, one interaction at a time. 18 months after the incident that changed everything, Lux Avenue prepared for a very special evening. The store was celebrating not just its transformation, but the launch of a new foundation dedicated to making the fashion industry more inclusive. The date coincided with what would have been Amy's mother's birthday, a fitting tribute to the woman whose vision had started it all. The store had been transformed for the evening. The midnight blue dress that sparked the change now stood in the center, surrounded by photographs telling stories of transformation from the past year and a half. Each image captured a moment where luxury and inclusivity had come together to change someone's life. As guests began to arrive, Amy noticed how different the crowd was from traditional fashion events. Yes, there were celebrities and fashion executives, but there were also community leaders, students from their mentorship program, and customers whose lives had been touched by their inclusive approach. The former manager, now a respected industry leader in inclusive luxury retail, stood near the entrance greeting guests. He'd just returned from a world tour where he'd helped implement the Chen protocol in luxury stores across 5 continents. The transformation in him was as remarkable as the changes he'd helped create in the industry. Sometimes, he told a group of retail executives, the biggest mistakes lead to the most important lessons. He shared how his journey from being the face of discrimination to becoming an advocate for change had taught him that true luxury was about lifting people up, not keeping them out. The young sales associate who'd become global director of community outreach was there too, surrounded by graduates of their mentorship program. Under her leadership, the program had helped launch careers for over 300 people from underserved communities in the fashion industry. One of those success stories was particularly touching. A former homeless teenager who'd been helped by their Style for All program was now a junior designer at a major fashion house. She'd created a collection specifically for job seekers on a budget, incorporating high-end design elements while keeping prices accessible. As Amy prepared to make her speech, she watched the diverse crowd mingling naturally, luxury retail veterans chatting with community advocates, fashion students engaging with industry leaders, customers from all walks of life sharing their stories. This was what her mother had envisioned, a world where luxury wasn't a barrier, but a bridge. The store's transformation had sparked changes far beyond retail. Other luxury industries had adopted similar inclusive approaches. High-end restaurants had created welcoming environments for first-time fine diners. Exclusive hotels had trained their staff to treat all guests with equal respect, regardless of appearance or background. The numbers told an impressive story. Lux Avenue's customer base had quadrupled, with satisfaction rates at historic highs. But the real success lay in the stories, the countless individuals who'd found confidence, opportunity, and respect within their stores. A touching moment occurred when an elderly woman approached Amy before her speech. She was using a walker and wearing a beautiful vintage Lux Avenue scarf. "I bought this 60 years ago," she said, touching the silk gently. "It was my first luxury purchase, and the saleswoman who helped me was so kind. Today, I brought my great-granddaughter to buy her first piece, and your staff made her feel just as special." As Amy took the stage, she looked out at the gathered crowd, a living testament to what happens when barriers are broken down and prejudices are replaced with understanding. The midnight blue dress gleamed under the lights, no longer a reminder of discrimination but a symbol of transformation. 18 months ago, she began, a moment of discrimination became an opportunity for change. But this celebration isn't about that moment. It's about all the moments that came after, moments where people chose inclusion over exclusion, understanding over judgment, and respect over prejudice. She shared stories from their journey, the job seeker who found confidence along with a new outfit, the transgender teenager who finally felt welcomed in a luxury space, the elderly gentleman buying his wife's anniversary gift. Each story represented thousands more, all part of a bigger change in how luxury retail treated people. "My mother used to say that luxury isn't about price tags or brand names," Amy continued. "It's about making people feel extraordinary." Today, we're not just celebrating our transformation, we're launching the Chen Foundation for Inclusive Luxury, ensuring that this change continues for generations to come. The foundation would provide scholarships for underprivileged students interested in fashion careers, fund research into size-inclusive luxury design, and help other retailers implement inclusive practices. It was a way of ensuring that the changes they'd started would continue to grow and evolve. After the speech, as guests mingled and shared stories, Amy found herself standing next to the midnight blue dress that had started it all. A young girl approached, looking at it with curious eyes. "Is this the famous dress?" she asked shyly. Amy nodded, kneeling down to the girl's level. It is. Do you know the story? The girl smiled. My mom told me. She said it's not about the dress, it's about treating everyone like they're special. That's exactly right, Amy replied, touched by the simple wisdom in the child's words. As the evening wound down, Amy took one last walk through the store. The space had been transformed, but more importantly, it had helped transform an industry. The Chin Protocol was now being taught in business schools, the Style for All program had spread worldwide, and their mentorship initiative was creating the next generation of inclusive luxury leaders. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in the everyday moments, the nervous first-time luxury shoppers who found confidence instead of judgment, the diverse staff who saw themselves represented in all levels of management, the customers who felt valued regardless of their appearance or background. The story of Lux Avenue's transformation had begun with a moment of discrimination caught on camera. But it had evolved into something far more powerful, a movement that proved luxury and inclusivity weren't just compatible, they were inseparable. As Amy turned off the lights that evening, she whispered her mother's favorite saying one last time, "True luxury is making everyone feel extraordinary." In the gentle darkness, surrounded by the legacy of positive change, she knew they had done exactly that.